the past week, the Prime Minister's been treading a careful line over Ukraine between supporting President Zelensky and not aggravating a seemingly contrary President Trump. His efforts with Mr Trump were firmly rebuffed today as the President confirmed once again he's not one for observing traditional alliances or diplomatic niceties. In fact, Mr Trump picked a fight with Sir Keir Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron. He accused them of doing nothing to end the war. No meetings with Russia, no nothing, he said. Not what either would want to hear as both prepare for trips to the White House next week.
After a week in which President Trump has accused the Ukrainian leader of both starting the war against Russia and of being a dictator, tonight Donald Trump again rounded on the government of Volodymyr Zelensky.
I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough. But we're not going to let this continue. This war is terrible.
It came just hours after a radio show in which Donald Trump broadened his criticism to include two key allies.
We have Macron coming to see you for France and then Starmer for the UK this week to move forward.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything either. The war is going on. There's no meetings with Russia, no nothing.
Right.
You know, they haven't done anything. And Macron's a friend of mine, and I've met with the Prime Minister, and he's a very nice guy, but nobody's done anything. And I've been watching this go on for years.
Sir Keir Starmer was in Kyiv last month pledging his support and has since offered British troops as part of a potential future peacekeeping force in Ukraine. But he wants a so-called American backstop to deter Russia from attacking.
How are you? I'm fine, and you?
Both he and Emmanuel Macron will be visiting the White House next week in what could now be an awkward meeting dominated by Ukraine.
Well, it's clear, and this is quite a shift in U.S. policy, that Europe, in a sense, maybe not Ukraine, but Europe is of secondary importance.
Monday will mark 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, in a war which has cost many hundreds of thousands of lives. The idea of Donald Trump negotiating face-to-face with a man who was accused of war crimes in places like Bucha has sparked outrage, even from Donald Trump's own party.
The world is watching. The strength of our alliances are on the line, and the future of democracy in the world is on the line if we do anything less than defeat Vladimir Putin.
But it appears Donald Trump is not listening. His administration is poised to abandon the effort to prosecute Vladimir Putin and may refuse to sign a UN document recognizing Ukraine's territorial integrity. Both key victories for Russia, without it having made any concessions at all.
Well, Dan, it's a pretty impossible job, isn't it, facing the Prime Minister and the French President when they arrive in Washington next week? How are they going to navigate it, and what is Donald Trump likely to focus on with them?
Good evening, Julie. Yeah, well, we've just heard from President Trump in the last few minutes, and he gave a kind of insight into his thinking, really. It's pretty transactional. Again, he was hammering home this point that he claims that America has spent 3 times the amount that Europe has in terms of military and humanitarian aid. Actually, the truth of the matter is it's almost the reverse of that, according to multiple people that have analysed the numbers. But he doesn't really seem to care about that. It all seems to be focused on the numbers. And what's striking, Julie, is that there's no condemnation from him of President Putin, no condemnation of Russia having invaded in 2022. Instead, all of the criticism has been focused in recent days both on President Zelensky and now on France and the UK as well. This evening, in the last few minutes, we've heard from President Zelensky in his midnight address to Ukraine, and he's announced that they are close to doing this deal on minerals, which he said would be an agreement which would add value to our relations. So perhaps a glimmer of hope there that something can be done to assuage Donald Trump's feeling that basically America is being exploited financially when it comes to the war in Ukraine.